All right, we're live. Welcome, gentlemen. I have Matt Torres, Micah Shoemaker from Brute, and we talked a little bit at Wadapalooza, but you guys are here on the podcast. We're doing it, virtual this time. We saw each other just about a week or so ago, but Micah, you reached out to me and wanted to kind of get some things out, as far as the rebrand and the rebirth of Brute. And thank you guys for coming on the show and wanting to chat about it. I'm excited to have you guys on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. When I reached out to you, I was like, it would be a little odd for me to host a podcast and ask Matt questions and talk about this at the same time. So we wanted a really good host, and you were the first one that came to mind. So thank you for doing this.
I appreciate it. Thank you. We've seen like inklings online. We've seen some things, kind of transforming and changing. And we know that there's been moves and, people shuffling all over the place as far as Brute is concerned. But the first thing is, Matt, I see your shirt. It's a new look. So I know, Mike and I talked a little bit about it at semifinals, but you guys went through a whole rebranding process. So I kind of wanted to know kind of how that whole thing came about and, what Brute is going to look like going into the near future.
For sure. So the big thing was is when Mike and I linked up, we wanted a clean slate, something that described who we are as a company, the foundation of why and what our company is built on. And we wanted a logo to exemplify that, a brand to showcase that for the public to see, because we understand, Brute has been around since 2013, and it looked a certain way, and it even had a certain, flow of how the business works. So back in 2013, the original Brute logo is like Utah Ute, right? Brute. And so that company had a lot of amazing coaches. It was a specialist brand, if you will. And through just natural growth and the process of working through what we would say is like the earlier growth stages of CrossFit, 'cause I believe we're still in those stages as well. Now who we are and what we stand for it's transcended, right? I'm not saying it's taken a complete 360, but it's now in this new form of what we think Brute is now. So we knew that we had to do it right. We wanted to get with a company that had a really good track record, the development of a rebrand. So we linked up with Fluoro over in the UK, and they have their hands in a lot of very cultural, creative. They're not afraid to reach outside of the box, if you will, and really get down to the bottom of who we are and what we are. And I believe, and Micah believes, that this logo, our mark, everything that we are ready to showcase to the world we believe they really hit the mark on our rebrand.
Yeah, there's nothing I have to add to that. I mean, it was one of those things when we talked about it and we heard that number, that first time when it sets in, you're like, this is what you're about to write a check for. And Matt and I look at each other and they're like, this is it. This is it. Yep, that's it. And I think it just goes to show, your brand is not just what people see. It's really what people say about you and how they interpret what they see. And so just throwing something up there, it's not just a logo. It's not just a mark. It's so much more beyond that. And as Matt was saying, and we felt really confident with Fluoro and what they had done with past brands, understanding the space. Honestly, if I'm being fair, we felt like we weren't the ones having to pay for that learning curve into the CrossFit space. You know what I'm saying? And they knocked it out of the park. They're amazing. Great brand.
As somebody who recently just went through a rebrand myself with, a new look, for the Wexfield podcast, I know exactly where you're coming from with that. I designed my logo just kind of, on a app on my phone, just kind of threw something together. And, when I didn't know anything about design, I didn't know anything about, podcasting or anything like that. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess this is going to be cool. Let's just throw it out there.
Sure.
And then got beeping. I don't know where that was from, but you know, now having a new look, I'm like excited about it. It brings a new excitement back to something that was, you know, something you were passionate about, and it just brings a whole new level of excitement. Do you guys feel that same way? You know, when you put on the new shirts, you look at the new logos, you look at the new ideas. Does that kind of bring that fire and that excitement back for you guys?
I think it's more like, you know, we see the new look, and we've been feeling this for a long time. What brings back the excitement is when other people notice the feel, other people, like, they see what it is. They can understand the distinction between us and another company. And they can actually describe to us what we were thinking about when we were going through this rebrand. Because in essentially what they're doing is they're describing our brand and our culture.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think Matt, you know this because you've been in the space for so long. It's like this space, CrossFit, has evolved, right? From where you could probably make it to the games doing, you know, box programming, to now where you've got, we were at Wadapalooza and there were literally 12-year-olds with 13-year-olds with coaches. And so as a company, I think you're so much more than just a coach. You're a mentor. You're also a friend. You're a guide. And so all these different things, and evolving that into a brand and being able to speak that language to people, I think is so important versus just saying, we do CrossFit, you know, we're hard, go hard. It's like, it's much more than that. And I think anyone that does this at a high level would probably agree with that.
And I love that. So going back to kind of, you know, you had alluded to the beginning and how you guys, you know, how Brute was brought out, with it being from Utah. Like, how did you two meet? How did you guys link up? We alluded to it a little bit at Wadapalooza that, you know, Micah, you're in Alabama. Mm-hmm. You're now a new Jacksonville resident, Matt. So how did you guys meet up originally, and how did this kind of whole thing start? Because you guys kind of came into Brute after the fact, and then, you know, bought the training, you know, bought the company, and now you're being able to rebrand it into something that is essentially now your vision.
Mm-hmm. So I joined Brute when they opened up their one-on-one remote coaching. This was back in 2017, 2018. And I really didn't know anything about Brute at that time. My first introduction to Brute was at a Brute camp in Utah, actually. And myself, Coach L, I believe we're the only two remaining from the original group. We were just told just to sit back and watch, like literally just don't say a word, just watch what we do. And that was when I really started to get the insight of how I feel coaching should be, as far as like how hands-on I need to be with athletes on a day-to-day basis. And that changes from, you know, their experience level and, you know, where they're currently at. But fast forward from 2017, 2018 to, let's say, 2022, 2021, I believe is right around the time when Micah came on board. And now how I know Micah is from our podcast first, and then jumping on board as another remote coach with us. And so what's funny is the last like year and a half before we even decided to do that, or I should probably say 2 years ago, it was like the 2022 season. I had a couple people reach out to me and just say like, hey, like, you know, what's Brute doing? Like, you know, you have your athletes, but what is Brute now? Like, you know, they recognize you, but what's really going on? And they're like, you should think about buying Brute. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it, actually. I'm doing fine how I am right now. I'm putting the attention to focus on my athletes, and that's just where I feel like my time needs to be spent. And then Micah came up to me, I think at the CrossFit Games in 22. Yeah. And he was like, dude, you should buy Brute. I'm like, and at that time I've been hearing it enough times where I'm like, okay, like what's the deal? Yeah. And that's kind of like when, I don't know, Mike, if you want to take it away, but that's when Mike and I started chatting about it.
Yeah. I think the reality of our sport is not just the ability to recruit and take on talent that is already great. That's awesome. Like 2 thumbs up if you can do that. What's more interesting to me is when you can take emerging talent, right, and then develop that and develop those people. And I really saw that in Matt. And it was kind of like, man, if I'm going to go into business with someone, ideally, you want to go into business with someone that, you know, this is harsh, but I'm going to say it. If 2 of you can do the same thing, 1 of you is not needed. It's just the facts.
Yeah,
So I felt Matt and I were different enough to where it would make it work. And I think his ability to take emerging talent, and we've seen it time and time again. He's done it with so many teenagers where other people have just flat out failed. And I know he's not going to talk about this, but I can. It's like he's been so successful at taking so many different athletes. You can go look back at his track record and making them into the incredible humans and athletes that they are today at a very, I would say, pivotal stage of their life and development, not just as an athlete, but as a human. And so as I started to sit down with him, I said, hey, look, I think with that and that idea, we can build a brand upon that, or continue to build a brand upon that. And I think here's my vision for what I would see the content being and the brand being and the media being, and et cetera, et cetera. And we just, that's kind of how that conversation evolved over time.
Well, and that's interesting because a lot of what, you know, people see and they recognize, you know, you go back to semifinals last year, you guys went 5 for 5, and they see the big name elites, but you guys had more than just, you know, some elites at Wodapalooza. You had a ton of athletes. I think we said you had 7 or 9, I think, representing Brute at Tier Wodapalooza.
Yeah. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think seven elites, somewhere in that ballpark. Yes.
So it just jumps so much further than, you know, what everybody sees as far as, you know, like top level, because that's what everybody, you know, pays attention to and looks at when they look at something like Tier Wodapalooza that we were just at. You know, sure. I was just listening to the podcast with Dylan, talking with Chase and Bill, and there's like 30 different divisions at Wodapalooza. But what does everybody pay attention to? Well, that top level.
Sure.
But you guys have taken that level just below it and now are elevating it up, which is exciting to see as, you know, somebody who has a young child in the sport, you know, to see the next generation coming up and you guys kind of taking a lead in that. As far as the, you know, kind of the branding change and some of the changes you guys have made as far as locations and things like that, is that all to kind of position yourself in a way to, you know, kind of reach that next level and next stage and give people kind of a beacon to look to that is your own and not somebody else's?
Yeah, I think as far as the move to Jacksonville goes, there was a lot of purposeful reason behind it. One of them was specifically for where do we see ourselves being for the long haul? You know, we need a major city. We need access to that major city. You know, and I really love Florida, so I wanted to keep it in Florida as well. We can ask our sponsored athletes to move on down. You know, it's much more cost saving than living in, you know, in Naples, Florida. And then it allows us to grow our business. With what you just mentioned, Wex, is, you know, give our knowledge and our insight into the sport, because yes, you know, the young ones are important, but what about the middle of the pack ones that are, you know, in the open, you know, quarterfinal, mid-range quarterfinal, and they want to be better at the sport just in a quarterfinal sense. You know, they want to be from number 6,000 to 3,000 or top 1,000. I think there's even more of those that, you know, they've flourished in a CrossFit group class setting. Maybe they're, you know, they're constantly finishing top 3 in their group, and they're like, hey, like, this would be cool. I want to continue seeing this progress take place. Like, how far can I take this? Local competition, semi-regional competition, like, how far can I take this? That's where we step in. Is we want to show that, look, we've taken the teams from this spot to this spot. We've taken athletes that are semifinals bubble, games bubble, and got them into the games last year. We've taken athletes like what we're seeing at Wodapalooza that are quarterfinal, and now they're going RX or elite level at Wadapalooza. So, and even like I can't even disregard age group. I've had more age group than any other clientele ever. I just remember my first year at the games, I had like Dallin, Dallin as a teen, and I had like 20 age groupers at the games, and it was a little chaotic, but we got it done. And so it doesn't matter where you are, the methodology has been proven to work. So with Micah's help, I know that I have the ingredients, right? With Micah's help, we need to create a recipe and we need to show the world how nice this recipe is. And part of that process is this whole rebrand. Part of that process is showcasing our authenticity of who we are. It doesn't matter if it's behind closed doors or out in front of our athletes or behind a mic. You're going to get the same type of person. It doesn't really change at all. And we're creating, and we have a great team around us to, take what we have and say, hey, look, it's not just Matt, it's not just Micah, it's not just Elle. Like there's a whole team that we're developing here that have the same type of knowledge, that have the same type of prerequisites, that have the same type of confidence as the three of us to prove themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and Micah, your role in this is for people know you from the podcast, and they hear you. And Matt is more like kind of the person people see vocal, but you do a lot of stuff behind the scenes with that as well, and you do a lot of stuff with the coaching. So kind of give people the insight to your role a little bit more as far as what your place is in Brute.
It's kind of a master of none, if I'm being honest. That's the truth. I'm very lucky to coach. And I think step one, I consider myself a coach, or, part one, I consider myself a coach first. And, I started with growing local gyms across the East Coast and building fitness communities. And you're just average affiliate, and, I think no matter what I did, whether it was coaching Sally or coaching at semis, the attention to detail and the excellence that and Matt's speaking about has been there from day one. You can ask any coach that I had on staff at the time. I was very difficult to work with because I had such a high level and high standard that I wanted to be able to meet. And so obviously I coach, and I consider myself kind of a coach first, and helping my athletes ultimately be successful. And then behind the scenes in terms of Brute, in terms of all the content strategy, media and marketing, is what I try to do is come up with the ideas and then give and empower some of the team members around us to give them a shot. Because the reality is, Wex, and this, there's a lot of people that want to get in this space, whether content creation, whether social media, whether I hope at least that I can empower other people and teach other people so that they can create more value for their life. And that's what we try to do, whether it's our coaches and our mentorship program, or whether it's you come on board and you work with us, is we ultimately want to create more value for your life. And so those are kind of the main two areas of what I do for Brute.
And, I'm not going to lie. So if you have heard the beginning of my podcast, I think I told you this, that I heard the beginning of your podcast, like the intro and the outro. And I was like, I love that. I want to do something like that. And basically went to a buddy of mine who's a producer and said, I need something that sounds like this. so you're inspiring people in the space, even though you don't know it. So thank you for that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're probably going to change that here very soon to match the rebrand. But I very much appreciate that compliment. Thank you.
So you guys, Matt, you alluded to, obviously the move from Naples. It's a big decision. It's a big move. You have people that, transplanted their whole lives down there that, came down to Naples, and now they're picking up willingly, very excitedly, to Jacksonville. I'm from Florida, so I know Naples is expensive. There's not anything there that's cheap. So, moving to Jacksonville, gives you more opportunity to do things. So was Jacksonville always the radar, or was it, you know, kind of looking all over Florida and saying, okay, where would be a better position for us?
Yeah, so I did do that as far as looking all over Florida. And to be 100% honest, I wanted to buy a location to have a home base that we can call ours. And so that was kind of the general headspace I was in when I was looking for a spot. And that happened to push me towards Jacksonville. You know, the part of the thing of who we are as Brood is this, you know, historically, we run a lot of camps. So we wanted a home base that was big enough for people to come on in and cheap enough to stay for a long week or a long weekend, and not have to let that be another, you know, objection as to why they couldn't, right? So part of the you know, I guess like our offerings is the camps that we run. We actually have a semifinal camp coming up here in April, the first weekend in April. Another thing is being able to have a location that's big enough that all of our sponsored athletes can come visit whenever they need to. You know, last year, I think we had 1,500 square feet. We had to have a morning A group, a morning B group, you know, evening A group, and evening B group, just so that they didn't like kill each other literally with a bar. You know, if one's doing burpees, the other one's doing, you know, clean and jerks, it could get a little crazy up in there. And so to be able to run, you know, a 30 or 40 person camp out of that thing it was done. You know, we did it a couple times, but it was a little hectic. So we have our athletes, and we're trying to get all of our athletes to move in. For Micah to just say, hey, I'm traveling down, I have access to 8 athletes, and I can do all their photos, I can do all their videos, all in, you know, one long week, right? And then, you know, he can work with one of our other employees to manage the campaigns or the value adds, whatever the case may be, right? Another big thing was we wanted a city that had access to outdoor elements in terms of like events. So like there's trail runs, you have access to bike trails over here. You have access to pool. We can be outside running all year. It's 80 degrees today, right? There's like, we have something all year round. Yes, there's more beautiful cities. Yes, there's more like, you know, culturally developed cities, let's say like a Austin, Texas, or a, you know, a Nashville, Tennessee is a great example that offers a lot more than Jacksonville does. But we can also have our athletes outside training year round because, you know, when they're going down to the CrossFit Games now in Fort Worth, we're going to have very similar temperatures, and you're going to have to be outside running. You're not going to be on a runner, right? You're going to be outside swimming potentially. You're not going to be, you know, not training swimming all year because it's too cold, right? And so there's a lot of things that lend itself very well to Brute, and you know, not to mention we've been graced by CrossFit tailwinds that took us in, and that's the gym that we're out of right now. And they have, you know, our PT on site. They have our chiropractor on site. They're bringing in a recovery room on site. There's even a psychologist on site, and so we are trying to build something that it's a one-stop shop for everything. I mean, I'm sure athletes deal with this all the time. It's like, it's one thing to go get body work done if it's like 30 minutes on the other side of the city, and then you got to go train, and then you hit traffic, and then it's like you're late, and then it's all hectic. You come on in, you park, you walk over to the PT, you get your body work done, you walk back over. I talk to the PT, you know, he's saying this, he's saying that. I go, okay, perfect. I'll switch up this program for today, make sure that they're going to be doing the right thing. And there's clear communication between all channels. And that's what makes for a solid season with less likelihood of injury, less likelihood of burnout, less likelihood of just like mental instability, these are all very normal and common things. I'm not saying these things like, you know, it's this like ick of CrossFit. I'm saying that these are normal things that every sport deals with. But if we can find ways to potentially, you know, put out those fires before they start, Great. And I think that being here in Jacksonville really allows us to develop a champion, not develop the athlete, not, yes, develop a human. That's great. And that's part of developing a champion, is developing a human. But we're not in this business to be, oh, we got top 40, oh, we got top 20. We're in this business to be number one. I don't know the timestamp of when that's going to happen, but that's my goal. And that's why I told Micah, I'm like, look, as long as I can still coach and coach my athletes, I'll do this with you.
Yeah, and as somebody, like I said, I'm from Florida. I've done things at Tailwinds, actually done an event for them. It's a great facility, and you're kind of underselling the size of this thing. I mean, those Tailwinds is massive as far as their area, and places that you can play. The outside area is fantastic. It's, I think, tucked back into like an industrial complex, so you don't get a lot of traffic, and like it's just, you got a lot of area to just basically kind of stretch out in, which is great, because I've also been to Naples and there was not a lot of area to stretch out in at all. Not just the area that you guys were at, but even the main gym itself, just very compact and very tight, and kind of hard to work in, and a lot of other businesses around. Whereas this, man, you just kind of have free run of the place.
Yeah, and look, we did pretty well with that tiny gym, so now we have a little bit more space and we can offer a lot more. So I'm excited for the things that are ahead for these athletes. We've heard athletes on different podcasts before talk down upon Brute of like, things being rusty or things not being this. And it's like, you know what? Who cares? Rusty, not rusty. Does it work? Can you get it overhead? Can you get it off the ground? Perfect. We're going to develop a champion.
Listen, there was a lot of rusty area in Rocky IV montage in Russia, and he won. So
yeah.
It's what you do with what you have. It's not how fancy or nice things are, but the fact that it is fancier or nicer is a bonus.
I agree.
Yeah. So Micah, you're now closer, because Naples is definitely further away from where you were. Jacksonville, a little bit closer. It's still a good distance, but easier for you to get over here and be able to do things and be more hands-on. So what are you looking forward to as far as with this move to Jacksonville? And I know it was a decision between both of you to do this. What are you looking forward to with this new opportunity?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I want to echo what Matt said. We're in this to build champions. Don't get it twisted. This isn't to sell T-shirts or to build someone's following or to get an Instagram follower. We care, but at the same time, both of us are on the same page. We want to build a champion, and we believe that we have a champion in our camp, and someone that can be a champion. And so, we feel very, very, very confident about that. Now, in terms of what I'm looking forward to, the thing about Naples that I think was a challenge, as Matt said, and it was amazing how they used that space, was that it was really tight, man. You've been there, right? It was like a few closets put together. You know what I'm saying? It was right. And Matt made it work, and these athletes made it work. Tremendous amount of props to Matt. But, you think about it and you go, man, how cool would it be, like Matt said, to have a camp with all of our semifinal athletes, which we're about to have, and be able to get everyone in the same building. It's like you don't realize the value of having all that synergy and all of those people and like-minded people in the same building and doing the same thing at the same time. And I couldn't be more excited about that, because there's just, it, right? It's like Friday Night Lights. All these people come together. Well, imagine that in a camp, but really high-level athletes, and that's pretty darn special.
And you get them playing off of each other, and it just brings everybody up. You get some people that train with the same people, and you kind of get into a rut. Not necessarily a rut, but you know what I mean. You get into a routine of, okay, I know what that person can do. I know what that person's good at. But then you bring somebody that's remote that may just crush in one thing, that comes in and just destroys somebody. We're like, wait a second, hold on. What are you doing different? What do you have that you can help me with? and what do I have that I can help you with, and bring everybody up together. That's why I love like the camp aspect that you guys do. Now, are you guys just East based as far as your athlete pool, or is it also West as well?
We have athletes quite literally all over the world, literally all over the world. And I think that's what's so cool about this sport is I might not speak your language, but we both speak burpee, like, and I mean, I just love this sport for that reason. You walk in any CrossFit gym and I don't care who you are, you're immediately, for the most part, you're immediately welcomed. And I think that's a real special piece of our sport that I've certainly appreciated as I've traveled the world.
Yeah, I think one thing that we do exceptionally well is, we bring these athletes together, but we are still programming for them individually. There's camps out there that bring the athletes together and they kind of somewhat do the same thing quite frequently. And it's a very fine line to get someone that's very highly competitive and get them competing every single day as part of training. And I would argue that even for the most part, that our sport is the only one that is still doing that. All right. Growing up in team sport, you do drills and you compete drill, but then you get together as a team to win. Your practice is not going up against, the team that you're competing against in 3 weeks. It's not, against your practice is your practice, right? Because, this is a proven method. Again, we're the only sport that attempts to do this thing where let's compete all the time. So what we're doing, and I've learned a lot from last year, and I learned a lot from the year before that when I had a couple athletes, and I learned a lot from the time that I had only remote athletes. And the structure that we're in right now is you have this athlete, you have that athlete, you're programming for those two athletes. These are your, sponsored elite level athletes. Now, when we bring other elite level athletes on, I don't want to get this part confused. We're not a team in the sense of like Kelsey Keel and Fee are a team and they're all like bubbly and giggly together, which they are by personality. But I can guarantee you when they're standing on that starting line at semifinals, they're no longer bubbly and giggly. They're looking at each other like, look, I hate you right now, and I'm going to beat you right now, right? And so what's nice is there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have a common goal of being a great individual athlete. And I think that's the one thing that we can really, have the camaraderie around is we have similar goals of wanting to be great. But yeah, we're working under the same company and getting coached by a coach that, that wants us to be great as well. But, it's not like this, we're a team and like we're a team when we're out competing. It's like we're all here today and we're all going to grind today, and we might suffer a little bit today as well. And we'll have that common understanding where it's like, my workout was painful. What did you have today? Because it's rare. It is very rare in our camp that they ever do the same thing. And they're always they're like, please, can I just do this? Can I just do that? Can I try this one? I'm like, yeah, no, let's just wait like 3 more months and we'll get there.
Yeah, I want to echo something really quick because I think this is a clear delineator between what we do at Brute and almost anyone else, which is we have people-centered programs. And I can't stress that enough. This isn't a situation where we take our competitor track and it's just a tweak here and a tweak here and everyone's doing the same thing. It's individualized. And we believe our stance is in order to help you be the best athlete you can be, that's the approach that's going to help you win flat out. And we have a process that we go through, a very specific one in which we investigate, in which we ideate, and then we ultimately take our approach to what it is that we're going to do, develop our approach. But through that process, it's the individual first, then everything else. And I can't stress that point that Matt made enough because it's a huge delineator between us and, I'm going to make a bold statement, and every other camp on the face of planet Earth right now in CrossFit.
Well, and that's one of the things that I actually witnessed myself when I came down to Naples is that, I rolled up into the parking lot, was going to drop into CrossFit Naples, and I saw all of them out there doing something different. James was pushing a sled. Dallin was doing something else. Fee was out, running or so everybody was had their own piece that they were working on because, this from coaching that one size doesn't fit all. Athletes are not the same. You look at it on the CrossFit Games floor. When a workout comes out, oh, that person's going to do well because they're a specialist in this. Oh, well, that person's going to do well because they're good at this. You can't coach those people all the same. You have to be able to take them as the individual and say, okay, let's work on this, this, and this. They don't need that. They're fine there, but you need this. And where you're strong, that's where they need the help. So, bouncing those different, personalities, those different body types, those different abilities, the different headspaces, all that, echoes in that individual, one size does not fit all type of programming that you guys have really kind of made your money at, and really put your stamp on. And that's something that's been really cool to see because I don't think you have any athletes that are alike. You would know better, working with them every day, but they all seem different in their own way.
Yeah, 100%. And they all need different guidance, let alone different program, their history, their background, their injuries, their energy, what needs to be edited on a daily basis, what needs to be, where do I really need to see them suffer? I'll tell you now, like, I hear every time after the CrossFit Games, there's, athletes are always talking with one another, and there's always rumors of athletes going here, athletes going there. And it breaks my heart sometimes when I hear things like, oh, this athlete wants to go train with this person, so they're going to switch camps to get the intensity that they need to do this. I'm like, man, I'm going to hold my feelings in on this one. But you and I know that this is probably not the smartest move for this person to do that. Because technically, to me, it is rare that they jump into a camp and it fits their mold exactly how they're expecting it to go down. If they're judging it just upon I need intensity, I need to get pushed by this athlete, I need the competition of this. It's like, look, I'll tell you right now, the one that you're looking up to, they're going to do great things. The one though, I'm not as confident to say that mold is going to fit you perfectly. Instead, and there's great companies out there. I'm not saying always choose us. We're not a good fit for every athlete. I'll tell you that right now. But what I am saying though is there are coaches out there that can get you to that next level. If we're that person for you, amazing, great. We're more than happy to help. But there needs to be that sort of thought of, what is this as a professional sport? How about the ones that are winning? What are they doing? What are the top 5 athletes in the world? What have they been doing? Think of the names that come to mind. They have been doing their own program. And then that company has been taking their program and goes, here you go. This has got to work for the masses. Let me just switch a couple things here and there. And it's that's what but I'll tell you right now, if you're professional, you shouldn't be doing what the mass is doing it. If you're a professional, you should be doing your workout.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to unpack. So going into this season with, the crew and all the different athletes that you have literally all over the world, what does that look like for you going into this year? How excited are you to see the, kind of the people that nobody knows about yet, that are just kind of right there on the cusp, that are coming? How much excitement do you have going into this year with those athletes?
Yeah, I think every year there's always a wild card component. CrossFit does a great job with keeping us on our toes as coaches, and I certainly appreciate that. There's never a dull day in the office here in this sport, and so I can appreciate that. As Matt kind of alluded to earlier, we're not just the company that can develop emerging talent in terms of young talent. We can take talent that's, bubble level quarterfinal, and hopefully get them to semis. And also that next step, if you're a semifinal athlete, get into a contention spot inside of the top 20, and then ultimately try to make a push for that top 10 or 11 or however many spots they end up allocating. But the point is, for us, everyone in our camp is in a little bit different of a spot. Yeah, people know the elites, the Dallin Peppers of the world, of course, but at the end of the day, we've got a lot of athletes that are looking to make it inside of, that top 20 at semifinals, or make it to a semifinal for the first time. And so I think both Matt and I equally are just as excited for those people, because at the end of the day, like, honestly, that's a huge accomplishment, and so we're going to guide those people, and just like we would, and give those people the attention to detail and the warm-ups and all those types of things, just like we would our CrossFit Games athletes, because in our opinion, how you do anything is how you're going to do everything, in terms of that in particular. And so we're really excited about this year, man.
Yeah, I think this is like the perfect time to say we are really confident in our coaches, right? So yeah, you have Mike and I here. You have Coach L that has a lot of great emerging talent that he's working with. You have Coach Dex that has a lot of time spent as a competitor, and brings a different type of vision to where he sees and understanding being on the competition floor. Coach Matt Pullen, that is now full-time coach now. And DC is our European guy. So DC was with me last year in Naples, Coach Daniel Condon. He's now full-time in Switzerland. And he's our feet on the ground in Europe. And so with our team that we have, and we're bringing on another 3 coaches right now as well, our focus is to make sure that our athletes are getting all of their needs met. Not just programming, because I feel like that's just the easy part. Like, that's what our job is, like, number 1 responsibility is give them good programming specific to their needs, right? But 2, make sure that they're competition ready. Make sure that when they're at the competition, that they have all their needs taken care of. I can't even tell you how many times we have conversations with athletes, and I'm talking about games level athletes, that they don't even have their coach back there with them, because their coach is either competing or their coach is, just not around, and they have their boyfriend or their girlfriend back there with them, or just a family friend, or maybe like a local coach at the gym. And it just blows my mind. It's like, look, if you're not prepared, and if you don't have your coach by your side in the most important moment of your career, then you're not really taking this as serious. And maybe you just don't know what you don't know. But if you're taking it serious, I can tell you right now, the top 10 athletes all have coaches lined up for them. And there might be cases like last year, I had 5 athletes in there. It does get a little hectic, but there are expectations that are set long before we get there, right? Because I can't be at 5 places at once, but we have our whole entire team back there that is on the same wavelength of the needs of our athletes. And there's constant communication between coaches to make sure that these athletes' needs are being met so that they can perform fairly well. And then, as Micah said, like, look, we don't always know what's coming out, ever really. And so we try to put our athletes in the best possible case scenario, and then it's up to them. It's out of our hands. We have no responsibility when they're out on the floor. It is all on them. If they decide to do this, it's on them. And there's that very common bond where it's like, you are self-sufficient, you are independent, you are capable. I have, worked with you for an entire year. Now it's time to showcase what you've been doing in training every single day. If you just do that, I can guarantee that you can at least hit this. And so then, they go out there and, with the confidence that they can just be who they are every single day, and that they're going to do very well.
And you get to a point in those relationships where they know what you're going to say, and you know what they're going to do. So you can send them out there with a goal and be like, okay, hey, I've trained you. I've taught you everything that I can teach you in this point, and you go and make the best decisions that you can on the floor. And as we saw at semifinals, it worked. It definitely worked out. Kind of wrapping all this up, with all the changes that have kind of gone on with the CrossFit season, you know, all the changes and I don't even want to say changes. I want to say the evolution of Brute. You know, this year, I don't think people realize how deep Brute goes,
They will.
because again, like I alluded to last year, it's like, oh well, they see the five. They saw the five last year. It's like, oh yeah, well that's all they do. No, I don't think they realize, that it is an international thing, and that you guys are a lot bigger than what I think people have previously looked at. So I'm excited to see, where you guys are gonna, land this year with all the athletes that are coming up, and through all the semifinals, obviously, worldwide, and excited to kind of see that evolution continue, because you guys both don't seem like somebody that just is happy with being where you are, as far as just, okay, this works, cool, we're just going to stamp our flag here and not move forward. You guys, seem like this is just the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah. I think as far as like semifinals goes, we'll have our team. So we'll have 4 coaches going out to European semis. We'll have a team of coaches going out to East, the American East. I don't even know what it's called, North America East, and then North America West. So you'll see our presence out there. You'll feel our presence out there, and we strongly do believe that is something that really separates us as a company. Is kind of what we've been alluding to the last 10 minutes or so. But I think even more important is for everyone else that has a desire to be better than where they're at currently. It doesn't matter, you name it. It can be score better on the open, score better at quarters, get into finals, go to the games, whatever. I think one thing to kind of hear is this, and just be with the utmost confidence. What Micah said earlier is we don't just take, let's say, Dallin's program and say, well, this works for Dallin, let me just make this for the mass general public, right? No, we sit down, we have a team of coaches that talk about our programs, and we say, this is why they need this, because they need to be better at quarterfinals. And if they can improve at quarterfinals, then they could potentially jump up to our next program where they need to be getting into semifinals or improve in semifinals, right? It's very important to say that, because it's a hard process to put together, and it's a timely process to put together, and it needs very systematic approaches to be able to put that much energy into it. And so if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself like, hey, like it's really cool to see these guys, top 5, top 3, top 10 at the games or semifinals, we have the ability to do that for you. And it's not in the same way that other companies are doing it. And I should probably preference this. We're not the end all be all. We're not the almighty company out here by any stretch of the means. But what I'm saying is, if you have ever considered or thought like what else is out there, because this isn't suiting me, I'm just saying, give the new Brute a chance.
Absolutely. And with that, how do people, get in contact? How do they follow along? How do they, get in touch and get involved?
Yeah, you can go to brutestrengthtraining.com, or you can check us out on IG, Instagram, brute.strength, and you can find everything you need in one of those 2 places. Or you can just message one of us. Well, I'm happy to help you.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing this, and thank you for inviting me to to chat with you guys about this and kind of roll out this whole new vision. And I wish you guys the best in the future, and best of luck this season. I say luck, that just kind of seems tongue in cheek. You guys put in the work, so best possible outcomes for all of you athletes. And man, I'm looking forward to watching.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.